Hi there and welcome back to Pierpoint Custom Rod Building and Repair. Video clip here is going to show you how to do a tip guide replacement. So I've had a tip section come into the workshop and it's got a damaged tip. This part, as you can see, has just become detached in there. Probably just about see that. Okay, so that needs to come off and a new tip put on. So I want to show you some sort of tips, tools and techniques of how to achieve that. And we need a range of materials to be able to do that. So I'm in my workshop, so first and foremost you need somewhere to do it. You obviously need a bench and you need some equipment. First of all, a couple of sort of safety bits I suppose is that we will be using a sort of naked flame, so just make sure, especially if you're in a workshop, that you've got your fire bucket handy and your extinguisher just in case. Okay. Some of the tools that we need are a measuring device, a heat source, a sharp knife, a pair of pliers. I've got another heat source there, some wet and dry, hacksaw blade and a glove. So when the rod comes into the workshop, obviously it's somebody's pride and joy, and I like to put mine up on a wooden block, so just to get it in a raised position so I can work on it. Now just be careful you don't scuff the blank. Okay, the rod. Okay, let's say that someone's pride and joy, so just to protect it. The first thing you need to do is you need to know the type of guide that is and the diameter of that tip top, and also the internal tube bore size, which is that bit there, because that's got to go back over that tip section when you've taken it off. Now, because I've done one of these rods before, it's a Xiplex M4 GT, and I like to make a couple of notes and sort of measurements. I know that the ones I've done before are somewhere in between 3.6 and 4.0 internal diameter tube bore. So what's the internal diameter? Is you need to know that bit there. Okay. You need to take some measurements off this rod. That's the important bit, so that it slides back over that tip section when you've taken the old one off. So using your calipers, the first thing to do is you need to measure the diameter of that tip ring. So that's 12mm. Now how you do that is you measure, it's the outside edges of that insert. Okay, it's not the outside edges of the guide there, but you can see an insert there, and that's about 12mm. So we know that's a Pack Bay 12mm tip ring. Now when you do the internal tube bore size, you obviously need the tip to come off the blank to be able to do that, and when that's off you then measure using your digital calipers the diameter of that tip section. Now obviously that's the external diameter, it's telling me it's a 4.7, so we know it's a little bit less than that. You can use your digital calipers to measure the tube bore size by doing this. Okay, and you can measure, in this one in particular it says it's a 3.2. They're accurate, not super duper accurate, but there's a bit of tolerance in there, so you just have to be careful. Okay, it says 3.2, but I know that this comes out of that packet and it's a 3.4, so I know that within that tolerance of 0.2 you might get a slight variation. So it's important to get that measurement right. Okay, so once you've got that, it's a 12mm Pack Bay guide, because you're going to replace like for like, and it's somewhere in the region of a 3.6 to 4.0 internal tube bore size. And I say we're not going to know that until we get that tip off. So the next bit is, how do we get that off the rod? Now be very careful, because we're going to apply some heat to this, and hopefully it's been put on with hot melt glue rather than Araldite. If it's hot melt glue, that should slide off. If it's Araldite, you're going to need to cut it, and if we have to cut it, that's what the hacksaw blade is for, and then I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we do not disturb this high build finish here, because if you do, you'll have to replace this thread. So it's black thread with the silver trim band, and we don't want to be doing that if we can help it. So the first thing to do is to take your sharp knife, and then where that high build meets the base of that tip section is just to score it very lightly. Okay, it's quite easy to do. So you just rotate the rod, and all you're doing is you're just breaking that seal. Okay, nothing more than that. If you go in too deep with a sharp knife, you'll damage the blank. And you do not want to take a sharp knife through to the carbon fibres on here, because you'll weaken that tip section. Okay, now I'm not quite sure what's happened to this tip, but I can see there's a hole in there where that's become detached. So I'm not quite sure if that's through casting or whether that's been caught up in something. Okay, but that's very badly damaged, so we're going to have to inspect the tip section just underneath there to make sure that hasn't been damaged. It's fatal if it has, because you'd have to cut that down. And if that is damaged and you cut this down, then of course you've got to move the next guide down, so you've got to reset the tip, and then if you move that down, you've lost a lot of your tip action. Okay, so you might have to get a new tip section rather than muck about with that. Okay, so once we've done that, so we've scored that to separate that, then all we need to do is get your heat source. You can use a lighter, but I prefer to use my gas lighter because I can just get a bit further away from it. Now when you heat that up, all you're doing is melting the hot melt glue that's underneath there, so hopefully that's what we've got. If it's too hot, make sure you put your glove on, because you'll burn your fingers. Okay, so all we're going to do is just apply a little bit of heat, and that's all you need. You don't need to do any more than that. Okay, if you put too much heat on, you could melt the resin that's actually in the tip section, and then you're in awful problems. Now if that's just hot melt glue, that should just come off. Now I can see already it's just starting to twist off. Okay, it's not on there tightly, and that's coming off quite nicely. Okay, and that's all it is. Okay, so we've got that off, and then you can see there's the hot melt glue stuff, and then all you need to do, it's quite nice, is you can just rub that off with your finger. Try not to cut it off. Okay, you do not want to disturb that blank. Okay, or damage it. Now straight away, as I said earlier, I'll just point it out to you, where that tip section has been damaged, there's a hole right in there. Okay, you can just see that. Okay, that's gone beyond repair of course, and it's a replacement job. Okay, so once we've got this off, you can see that we've just taken that down to the high build finish there, so we haven't disturbed that. Obviously there's some scuff marks on there from where the customers brutalised it. Okay, and then just use your fingernail just to scrape that off. Okay, and then when you've done that, that's what the wet and dry is for. So it's an 800 grade that I use, and then all you're going to do then is just to take that off. Okay, again be very careful that you don't go down to the carbon fibres. Okay, and once you've taken that off and smoothed it down a little bit, it'll just act as a key for when you come to put your new tip top back onto this rod. Okay, now that tube bore size, let's go back to that, and then let's just see what size this is, because you want to go like for like. Okay, so we're going to measure that. Now just measuring that with the digital calipers, it's telling me it's a 3.8. So we know roughly that's going to be somewhere in the region of 3.8 to a 4.0. Because say these are not that accurate. You can, well, they're about as accurate as you're going to get it. You can use one of these. Okay, it's a sizing tool, and then all you do then is you just offer that up to the various protrusions on here. Okay, so 3.8. I mean, that's what my digital calipers were saying. So it's somewhere in the region of a 3.8 to a 4.0. Okay, and then you can see just on that one, the 4.0 is probably the better fit. So straight away, I know that that guide is a 12mm 4.0 internal tube bore diameter. Okay, it's a pack bay, and that's what I need to order from Guides and Blanks, because I haven't got that in stock. I've got different sizes. I've got the 2.8, a 3.0, a 3.2, a 3.6. I've got most, but what I haven't got is the 4.0, so I'm going to have to order that. So there'll obviously be a slight delay in getting this one out of the workshop for the customer. Okay, but we can leave that there. And then in the next video clip, I will show you how to replace that new tip top on this rod once that comes in from Guides and Blanks. Okay, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and look forward to catching up with you soon.